meant to have a good deal of repetition with our previous discussions, in two and in one especially, just to make the idea clear and to be more concise in what we want, because there is a lot of confusion about it, and many people think it is some kind of mystery, or need to be demystified. Uh, the first Islamic bank in our contemporary life, in our age, in my age at least, not your age, guys, came in 1975, which was a commercial bank, came in Dubai. The Islamic Bank of Dubai, or Dubai Islamic Bank, in United Arab Emirates, came in 1975. Before it, the Islamic Development Bank was established but did not start activities until 1976. The Islamic Development Bank is an intergovernmental bank, not a commercial bank, and it does not deal with individuals or companies. Late in its life, about 20 years ago, it is now half a century old, but about 20 years ago, it established a private sector subsidiary that deals with financing the private sector in the member countries. Otherwise, it is essentially an intergovernmental bank. Its first transaction came in August, I think August 11, if I'm not wrong, in August 1976. The first 2 years, it was not really able to make any financing transaction, although it had already collected during the first year of them, collected its capital, and but it was kind of handcuffed, could not make any financing. We will discuss this point maybe later. Islamic banks have grown through time, and in 2022, they controlled 2.25, or they controlled 2.25 trillion dollars. Most of it was Islamic banks, but there were also some Islamic insurance companies and a few, again, Islamic mutual funds. If you get some little idea about this growth, the growth was at a very great rate, as a matter of fact, a lot higher than the growth of conventional banks, or growth of the assets under the control of riba-based banks. The rate of growth, it is still definitely a very small percentage of the global financial assets. It's about 1% only. Still new, still doesn't have control, much of control on a huge amount of funds relative to the conventional interest-based finance, but it is growing at a faster rate than the other. Islamic banks exist practically in many countries. Most Muslim countries have Islamic banks. In some of them came late, and interestingly, Islamic banks came late in Saudi Arabia and in Morocco. Although in Morocco we have Amir al-Mu'mineen, and in Saudi Arabia we have the claim that the constitution of it is the Quran. In spite of that, Islamic banks in Morocco came in the new century only, and in in Saudi Arabia came in the late 1980s. That's after 15 years of the beginning of the Islamic banking industry in other countries. But the growth is considerable anyway. And this slide shows some kind of a way of the growth of Islamic banks. Let's go further. And we want to discuss today what is Islamic finance, what does Islamic finance bring about, what is new in it, uh, why, what is new in Islamic finance? That's number three. Number four, how to implement it, and for whom is it, and why do we need Islamic finance? We will go on in that. Where are we now? Okay. Uh, the common definition of finance is, as you have it in finance books and in money and banking books, in taught in the universities practically all over the world, including all the Muslim countries or Muslim majority countries, because we divide them as Muslim majority countries and Muslim minority countries. So it's not really Muslim countries or non-Muslim countries. In all these countries, including the Muslim majority countries, finance is taught and defined as provision of credit or cash, and of course to businesses and to consumers. Whereas really finance in reality goes beyond that, because provision of goods and services without having the counterpart either at all or without having the counterpart being immediate at the same time, more or less, is also financing. So, for instance, when you give a wedding gift to your sister-in-law, that is financing, even though that you may have given a physical item, anything that is really an item that she will use or they will use, not necessarily giving money. A business, when it gives financing to a consumer or to a buyer, that for delivering the commodity while accepting having the price of it paid either on installment or at a later date, that is also financing. So, in fact, a better definition of finance is provision of goods, services, and or means of payment, that's credit or cash, including cash, of course, with a counterpart either coming later or not coming at all. Because who finances all the charitable organizations in the world? Donors who give to these charitable organizations are the finance providers, really, and they finance it through uh, donations or charity or sadaqah, or call it whatever you call it, but it is without any counterpart coming at all. But this is also definitely a financing. So a more comprehensive definition of finance is more consistent with the Islamic finance. It is provision of goods, services, and or means of payment, including cash, with a counterpart coming at a later date or without a counterpart at all. Both of them are finance, and we will have some touch also on the part of finance that doesn't have any counterpart, that is the donations and zakah and charity etc. Uh, that should bring us to the finance contract. The finance contract is an interpersonal constructed relationship. By constructed relationship, we mean a created relationship, not a natural one. This is in contrast with parenthood, for instance, parent-child relation, or mother-child relation, or father-child relation. That is a natural relationship. Cousins, this is natural relationship, whereas marriage, for instance, is a constructed relationship. It's a relationship that we create through a contract that is called marriage contract. Same thing, finance. Finance is a constructed relationship which confers goods, services, and other assets, including cash, of course, or it may confer the management of such things, not necessarily conferring the ownership of the asset, but maybe the management of it against either a deferred payment. When we confer the ownership, would be against deferred payment, or when we confer the management, it would be against deferred settlement that will show what is the share of each party at the end, at the date for the settlement that is set. For the settlement could be yearly or quarterly or monthly, and it also can be daily. Why not? And that applies certainly on the sharing contract. Like when you create a partnership with another person, one of these two persons or an outsider will be the manager. So we are conferring the management of the assets that you put, and that will require settlement that is deferred for a future time. This is why we do consider creating partnerships or companies or corporations by putting together financial and human resources. Also, this is a form of financing. So a better definition of finance then is really giving goods, services, assets, means of payments, including cash and slash credit, with a counterpart that is financing for profit, or without counterpart that is financing not for profit, but rather on uh, charity basis or donation basis. uh, Really, the need for finance in general, and we will talk about Islamic finance in specific, is that by nature of human beings, some of us have expertise in, call it, making money, in doing business, profitable business, and some of us don't have. But still, those who don't have that expertise may have financial resources. So there is a need for cooperation between them. And this is the what you find in ancient fiqh books. For instance, this book of Al-Mughni, called Al-Mughni by Ibn Qudama. And Ibn Qudama, by the way, was a Palestinian from Al-Quds, but he was a refugee in Damascus. He lived in Damascus. Probably he was born also in Damascus at the time of Crusaders. So we have now people coming from Palestine since 1948 or after, they came to like the Damascus and they live in Damascus. They are still Palestinian and they will go back, inshallah, to their homeland sometime. But for now, it's like Ibn Qudama. Later on, his descendants were able to go back to Palestine after it was liberated by Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi, and especially Al-Quds itself was liberated by Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi. Some other later parts of Palestine were liberated by Al-Zahir Bibars that came after Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi for about 70 years or so, uh, around that much. But anyway, in Ibn Qudama, for instance, he said, what is the justification for the contract that is called mudaraba, whereby one provides funds only to another person who uses these funds to make business in industry or in trade, and then they divide together according to a rate they agree on in advance. They divide the profit together. This is the contract of Mudaraba. And he said the justification of it is the natural thing that exists in all human communities, where you find people having financial resources but lacking expertise in business, while others have expertise but they are a bit short on financing. They can use finance from others. So this is then the why human beings need to cooperate in this regard, and they create between themselves financial contract based on cooperation. Exchange contract also are needed and necessary between a human being, and exchange contract, uh, again, exchange contract create uh, additional value, because you won't go into an exchange contract giving some part of what you have, and against getting a thing that you don't you want. You won't go into that contract unless what you get is at least a little bit better to you than what you give, which means that it creates added value. So exchange contract create added value also. And definitely when you use exchange contract with deferred payment, it creates even more added value, because it allows the recipient of the item to have benefit of more items under his control and in his or her ownership, without reducing or without sacrificing any item until later. You use it for 2 months or 3 months or a year or more, and you only give that counterpart at a later date, a deferred date. And at that deferred date, then you pay, in a sense, its price. During that period, you have used that item without reducing any other item that you have, and definitely you have added value to yourself. And this added value, the provider of that item wouldn't like to give it to you, because he would be a pure loser and you are a pure winner in that, unless you compensate him, unless part of this added value is given to the person who gives you that item. The contract wouldn't happen. In other words, an exchange contract would create added value, and this added value would be divided, depending, of course, on the market conditions, between the provider of that item and the recipient of that item. That's what sales does. or what sale contract does. So the seller wouldn't accept the same amount if you are going to defer the payment, because there is a benefit that he loses by giving you that item, and this benefit need to be compensated for the provider of that item. So a sale contract then create additional value for both. Of course, as long as the sale is done at free will and with full consent and uh, complete information about what you get and what you give back. If we go one step further, uh, in when we put the resources together, we put them because we feel by putting resources together we can achieve better efficiency in producing what we want to produce, whether goods or services, making them available for sale. And we believe that when we put resources together, financial resources and the human resources, that brings us closer to what we call the optimum size of the firm, and that gives you higher efficiency, higher productivity of all the resources that you have, both human and financial. And this is also what justifies the sharing contract. This came again in the book of Ibn Qudama that is called Al-Mughni in volume 5. The book is about 20 volume. And you should notice that in a previous slide that Ibn Qudama died in the year 630 of Hijrah. That means about 800 years ago. So our scholars, long time ago, they discussed the needs for financing, and they discussed also the finance contract and financial relationships. You find these discussions hidden within the argument about the Sharia ruling and the Sharia pronouncement, what is the way it should be done here and there. But if you look at this rationale that is behind all these kind of relationship, you will find them that they have discussed really this rationale. Okay. Uh, Financial relation financing, we need also financing for unexpected or unforeseen circumstances. You may be going on a certain plan, and things will be okay, but something unexpected may happen. And of course, that is life is full of these kind of surprises. Again, you may need financing for it to pass that period, and after passing that period you'll recover, you'll be able to pay back what you got as financing. Again, this justification is mentioned by Al-Mughni. The idea here is by Ibn Qudama in Al-Mughni. The idea here is to note that in the historical classical culture that we inherited from our ancestors, there is a lot of wisdom. And of course, there are mistakes, no doubt about that. But there is a lot of wisdom that requires us to really search for it and look for it and understand it and realize how forward thinking they were and we need to imitate them by being also forward thinking, not only by limiting ourselves to what they have done. We should use what they have done and build on it and go ahead further and further. Uh, we should notice, and this is, we discussed it before also, that ownership has two essential characteristics. Ownership is defined by our Muslim scholars in a beautiful definition. It is a full authority granted by God to a person over a thing that this person owns. And this person may be male or female, it doesn't matter. And either way, that the owner has full authority on what uh, he or she owns, can do anything. And that brings us again to another idea which is very important in both Islamic finance and in Islamic economics in general, that is the economic freedom, which is very, very important. So economic freedom is essential again. But come back to the point, ownership has these two characteristics. If you own a thing, you are entitled to any increment that happens in that thing. And at the same time, you are the one who will be liable for any risk or any damage that may happen to the thing that you own. That's natural, of course. And these two, one we call them the bearing the liability of what you own, is called in Islamic literature. And sorry to say that Islamic literature, almost all of it is written in Arabic language. So in the Islamic literature is called daman. If you own a property, the demand of that property falls on you, meaning that if anything happens to that property, you will be the one who will bear the consequences, who will lose if it is destroyed, for instance, completely, or if it is partially destroyed, then you are the loser. You lost that part. At the same time, if you own a thing, you are also entitled to any increment that happens in that thing, regardless of whether you put effort with it or you don't put any effort. If you are just sleeping at home and your cow gave birth to a baby cow, the baby cow is yours definitely. That should again bring us, it is not in our subject today, but when we discuss the principles of Islamic economics, we will discuss that point. That is that the source of value is according to the reality and according also to the Islamic point of view. The source of value is not only labor. Labor is one of the sources of value, but also the grant from God. The grant that God gave to human beings is also another source of value. And when this grant of God, when it is specified for individual persons, you own something that you got it by appropriate way of gaining ownership, then you are entitled to any increment that may happen in that thing, regardless of whether you put an effort also with that or without any effort. In other words, the sources of value are both property and labor, not only labor alone, as in the Marxist theory, or as David Ricardo, who he was, I think, one of the teachers of Karl Marx. He took from it this theory of value. It is not we do not accept the labor theory of value. Rather, we argue that both labor and ownership or property both may create value. If you own a land without any effort, grass comes in that land, you own that grass definitely, and you are entitled to full authority on that grass, the same way you had full authority on the land that you owned. Same thing if you own a cow, you own also the baby cow and the milk that it gives and the growth it gives in term of more fat and more meat in its body, if it is for slaughtering, for meat, I mean, and so on, for eating. So depending on the use of it. At the same time, labor is also a source of value, not only property alone. Both of them create additional value. Uh, to go further, then uh, Islamic finance characteristics. First, it is a kind of participatory finance, supplier of funds to financial institutions are partners with the Islamic financial intermediation institution, which is very often an Islamic bank. They are partners, they are not creditors to it. They retain their ownership and they only surrender as we find it in the contract of Islamic finance contract. In the definition of the Islamic finance contract, they surrender the management to the Islamic bank or to the Islamic financial intermediary, and this intermediary, when it provides financing to its customers, it really acts as an agent by virtue of an agency which is underlining any investment deposit in Islamic bank. So they are partners, they own the property, and the bank would mix with those funds that it gets from the depositors. It mixes its own fund and provide all, as we will come to discuss it in the future again, to the users of funds, whether consumers or businesses. So the suppliers of funds are owners of what they supply and they remain owners, and the bank acts only as agent, and also agent who is authorized to mix its own funds, that is the funds of the shareholders of the bank, with the funds that it obtains from these partners. They retain their ownership. By virtue of retaining ownership, they are liable to any loss that may be done as a result of the activity of the Islamic bank or the Islamic financial intermediary, but also they deserve the profit at the proportion, at the ratio they agreed on at the beginning. So they share profit with the Islamic bank. And definitely not like what happened to Universal Bank a couple of years ago, the Universal Bank of Northern California in Silicon Valley. It went bankrupt because when you take the picture of its balance sheet, its assets went down in their value, but it has commitment to lenders for their principals and their interest above the principals, and it could not meet these liabilities with the declining value of its assets, and the result, of course, declaring bankruptcy. If that happened in an Islamic bank, they will even share the risk with between shareholders, share the loss between shareholders and depositors, and there is no need to bankruptcy. It can continue and recover with time from its problem. Uh, so another issue in it, it is always Islamic finance is ethical finance. This is because an important principle in Sharia. Notice Islamic finance deals with mal, and mal is properties. Properties could be goods and services, could be also cash. So, cash and goods and services, all these are properties, and the definition of property in Islam is anything that is not harmful. If it is harmful, then it cannot be a property. It is not a thing that you own or buy or sell or whatnot. It must not be harmful. If it is harmful, then it is not a property. If you own a pack of cigarettes, that is not considered a property, in fact, in Sharia and in our religion and in Islamic finance. This is why Islamic banks definitely don't finance cigarettes and don't finance liquor or anything like sin activities, as they call them in United States and Canada. So we have an ethical built in because of the definition of mal or property, that and because Islamic finance is based on property, you cannot own a thing that is harmful. And if you own a thing that is harmful, the only way you can do with it is to destroy it. You cannot do anything else. It's very interesting. It happened at the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that a man has imported a caravan of liquor, khamr, in Medina, and that happened that the caravan arrived shortly after the verse came in the Quran prohibiting liquor. So the man came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What should I do with my wealth? He told him, you have to throw it in the sand, just destroy it. He said, how about returning it? I imported it from Syria, from Sham. How about returning it to there and getting my money back? He said, no. Now you own it. Yeah, there is no way that you can replace it with your money that you already paid it. How about sending it to Mecca and giving it to our enemies, even free? Let them get drunk, and we will conquer them in war. They will be always drunk. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him, no, you cannot even do that. You cannot give a harmful thing even to your enemy. So what is the result? You have to lose all that. Just throw it in the. It is nothing. It is not a thing that has value. It is not really a mal. And this is why intrinsically, by definition, by its nature, Islamic finance is ethical, because you cannot buy any item that is harmful and finance it, give it to a consumer or give it for business. So by definition, Islamic finance is ethical, not by a management decision. It's by its nature. At one time, I was giving a training course in northern Germany. It was to one bank there, one community bank, and all people were employees from that bank. So when I mentioned that Islamic finance is ethical, They said, well, we also don't finance any sin activity. There is a decision by our management that we don't finance. They are interest-based bank, but they said based on the decision of our management and our board of directors, we don't finance anything that is harmful. So I asked that person, how about your next door bank, your neighbor bank? Do they finance sin activities? He said, yes, they do. So I told him this is the big difference between Islamic finance and your finance, guys. The difference is that in Islamic finance, the nature of it cannot be at all sinful, whereas it is a decision by your manager, not a decision, not by the nature of financing that you take that decision. It's a good decision that you have taken, and it's a good practice that you did, but notice the big difference between Islamic finance and conventional finance. It does not need a managerial decision to be ethical. It's the nature of the transaction cannot be except ethical. And that is very important difference as a matter of fact. Okay, the next thing, it's a real market finance. Since in each finance transaction, you have to buy and sell on credit, or you have to buy and lease, even a lease that end with ownership, lease purchase, call it, or any name that you call it. In our practice in Islamic banking, we prefer to use the word lease ending with ownership, and that is what is practiced. So it is, or you create new companies or expand existing companies that produce goods and services that benefit human beings. So by definition, then, we are connected to the real market, and it is really a real market finance. It is not finance that is separated from the real market. You can deal for all day long and for all weeks long also. You can deal with options and don't hear at all about the shares you have options on. Don't touch at all the shares you have options on, and you are dealing purely financial without any relation to the real market. But for Islamic finance, each Islamic finance transaction must have accompanying to it certain goods transferring hands, or certain project being built anew or expanded, if it were existing already. So either way, you are in the heart of the real market. You cannot be outside of the real market. And so this is a big difference between Islamic finance and conventional finance. Today, most American today, even after the crisis of 2008, most banks in the United States make more profit from the finance market than from financing consumers and businesses. What is called the banking book, this is financing consumers and businesses. And what is called the trading book in the bookkeeping of the bank, what is called trading book is financing that goes in the finance market, selling and buying securities, etc., of all kinds. They make more profit from the trading bank than from the banking book, from the trading book than from the banking book. And that cannot happen in an Islamic financial institution. Its main profit comes from the banking book because it buys goods and sells them or give them on lease or share in creating businesses and expanding existing businesses. So it doesn't work really that the banking book must always be the dominant and the main source of their profit. They may make some trading activities, buying and selling sukuk, for instance. We will come to it later. What is sukuk? But sukuk are Islamic financial instruments, but that again will be on the side, really, not as the main activities of the Islamic Bank. So now come to the other point, that is, what is new then? What did we do in Islamic Bank? We did something really different, but it is also interesting, but it is also very simple. All we did that Mr. Financial Intermediary Institutions, Mr. Banks, for instance, don't give any loans, don't take loans in general, don't take any loans. We will come to some details in that. Don't take loans, don't give loans, only take partners, and only give sale or leasing or creating or expanding, creating new projects or expanding existing projects. So we are telling them, take this contract of sale, lease, and sharing from the commercial law, which are known to everybody. Yani, look at the point, please, my dear. Look at this point. Sale on credit or sale with advance payment is known for everybody in every society, was known before the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and known after him, and in all societies. There is no society in the world, and there was no society in the world probably since Adam, unless it knows what sale is, and it knows and what sale on credit is, and it knows what leasing is, what renting is, and it knows how to put resources together through sharing. All societies having them that. Then, in a sense, I can say, and I've said that in one of my papers, Islamic finance is not Islamic. Islamic finance is a human race finance, is not Islamic finance, is really finance of the real market, is a human nature finance. We didn't do anything else, really. All what we said, okay, Mr. Banks, Mr. Financial Intermediaries, this is what you do. You sell, you lease, and you create or share in companies, in corporations, in partnerships, etc. But you don't give loans. That's all what we did. And that small thing, as simple as it is, the result of it really is very, very big. As we noticed, we connected our finance with the real market. We imposed on it that it can only be by its nature ethical, and it cannot really be other than participatory with your either when you finance on sharing or when you take deposit. Mainly they are investment deposit. So, what does the Islamic finance contract then do? As a definition, it is interpersonal constructed relationship which confers goods, services, and other assets, including cash, or confers the management. That is against deferred payment when you confer the ownership, or against future settlement, deferred settlement, when you confer only the management of it. The effect of that is there is a transfer of ownership uh, or transfer of management. In sale, we transfer ownership. In lease, we transfer the ownership of the usufruct while maintaining the ownership of the corpus. We separate the usufruct of a thing from its corpus. You retain the corpus and you transfer ownership, you sell, transfer ownership of the usufruct. And in sharing, you together own what you do and own the assets and the inventory of that business, and you prepare it for sale, and you gain from the sale of your goods or services that you produce. We may create a debt through sale or through leasing, but we don't take the debt as a base for financing. And this is why we eliminate the loan contract from the financing that aims at making profit. And of course, nowadays, at this time and in this slide, we are talking about financing that makes profit. Uh, and also, whenever a debt is created, the rule of Sharia tells me that you can secure your debt. You can take any collateral that you desire. You are not required to create a debt. And if you create it, you are entitled to secure your debt. That means that collaterals are uh, permissible. You can take collateral or personal guarantee or anything whenever there is a debt. Because the debt is interpersonal relation and you want to secure it, you are entitled to secure it when you create it. Okay, what? Islamic finance then is done only through sale, lease, or sharing. Sale could be deferred payment sale, could be salam sale. Salam sale is a sale with immediate payment and deferred delivery. It's exactly the opposite of deferred payment sale. Istisna is a sale, but the difference between it and salam is that it requires some kind of manufacturing. You don't have to be the manufacturer, but the item you got requires some kinds of manufacturing by its nature. You can sell, for instance, computers on istisna basis, but you cannot sell wheat on istisna basis, or date, or chicken eggs. These are not manufactured. There is no handwork included in their existence. So this cannot be, or you cannot sell on istisna basis baby cows, for instance, for meat or for any other objective. So that is the istisna. Lease can be simple lease called ijara, or it may be also ijara ending with ownership. Ijara is called ijara muntahiya بالتمليك. إجارة منتهية بالتمليك. Translation, lease ending with ownership. It can be sharing, and sharing also may have three kinds of major kinds of sharing. Musharaka, that's where financial and human resources are from all partners. Mudaraba, when one partner provides only funding, and the other provide the management and expertise, business expertise. And muzara'a, that is between a landlord and a farmer. So the landlord gives the land and they share the product. We will discuss these in their details later. So now we are taking the overall idea of what they are. The innovative message of Islamic finance is do not work on loan contracts. Remove fictitious and speculative practices from the heart of financial institutions. Remove all relationships that do not create added value. This is very much really notice how important is it and how related to the real market is it also. Uh, we work on existing contracts that are known in all societies and that are discussed in all commercial laws in all countries. We plug real life contract into the heart of financial institutions. So this is the innovation really of Islamic finance, and this is what Islamic finance all about. And you noticed it is not Islamic because we are using contracts that were known before Islam and are known in the in all laws in all countries. It is true, then we shouldn't deny that point that we kind of put certain conditions on these contracts to avoid any abuse or to avoid anything that brings them toward being like loans or toward being fictitious or toward being not related to the real market or being applied to non-acceptable, immoral items or even conditions. So yes, we have put certain characteristics to these contracts, but the essential nature of these contracts are known to everybody. Give you an example. This contract that is called Salam, that is advance payment and deferred delivery of the item, of the goods. This contract, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said about it, yes, said when you make salam, make it for a definite quantity and a definite date of delivery. Don't make it like delivery in the 8th month of the year. No, say in what day of the 8th month. You need a delivery in a delivery date and delivery place also. Where are you going to deliver it in Damascus or in Toronto? That is important to determine that. So determine it. This is the improvement, the kind of improvement which looks really natural. And without such improvement, the contract becomes wrong, really. If you say, oh, give me a quantity of wheat, delivery in the month of June or July. You have not defined anything. You need to define it. What is the quantity, 100 kilo or 1,000 kilo or whatnot? And what is exactly the delivery date and place, etc., etc. These are natural things. Look to us now as normal being who deal in market. That's natural. So why did the Prophet said that? sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said that because he noticed that some people were not definite in their contract. So he said it has to be definite. Now by wisdom that we learned through time, we know that being definite is definitely part of the contract. We cannot make contract that is not definite. So this is really the kind of advice that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam added to the contract of salam, for instance, this contract of financing producers, and it is applied more in agriculture than in other areas, but it can also apply anywhere in any business, not necessarily in agriculture. So we come now to the axiomatic principles that again we discuss them. Notice that we are repeating, and this repetition is intended because we need to inculcate these ideas to be clear. These are the fundamentals of Islamic finance. Okay, earning by owning. You cannot earn in Islamic finance without owning a thing, and that thing must be also able to provide or to create added value. So earning by owning. And again, earning by owning is a principle of justice, is a value, is an issue, is an ethical matter, not only a rule, a fundament of Islamic finance, axiomatic principle, but it is also an ethical value. Uh, Financing assets, financial assets, or financial securities, better use the word securities, but even financial assets is the same, are mere representation. We do not recognize financial securities or financial assets on their own. Tell me what they represent, and I'll tell you whether they are accepted or not. If they represent a future contract, we say this is fake, really. That's not really a good thing to do. Then that's nothing. Shouldn't be. If they represent option, we say that an option, although it is a financial right that you have created, but really it does not represent any asset that create added value or may create added value. So it is really nothing. An option is not acceptable to be purchased, to be owned, to be sold, or to be traded. So it is really fake in that sense. We don't accept it, although you put it in the law as a financial right. So what? We don't recognize it. For us, it doesn't exist at all. So financial assets, sorry, we look at them only by what they represent, and we apply the rule of what they represent on them. If it is a commercial paper, then we say this is a debt, and a debt should be only transferred from one person to another at face value. You cannot make any transaction at other than the face value of the debt, period. If it is a deposit certificate. Oh, what is a deposit certificate? It's a debt on a bank, so it is a debt, like a commercial paper, like a treasury bond, like a company bond, like an annuity. All these are debt, and call them whatever you like. We call them debts, and we apply the rule of debt on them. We don't apply any other thing on them. So this is what is for us the financial assets, or better, financial securities. The next axiom is realism. We work with the real market. We don't accept to be outside the real market. We deal with livestock, with plants, with the trees, with the machines, with cars, with laptops, with furniture, with anything. We deal with the real market. And to make finance, you have to own these and give them either on lease basis where you surrender, where you sell the usufruct, or on sale basis when you sell the corpus itself along with its usufruct also. So this is realism, and we abide by that. And of course, the moral commitment is the other condition that we always abide by. So this is these are the main four axioms. The doctrine of realism is very important. يعني you read in it that according to Islamic finance or Islamic law, Islamic Sharia, realism means that the rulings of Islamic law always adhere to things as they exist in real life, in real world, in their actual realistic forms as they occur in real life. We point out that the Quran was revealed in accordance with the conditions, situations, and events as transpired in the life of the Prophet Muhammad and people around him and the Muslim society with him over the course of 25 years of revelation. In fact, some Quranic verses have been revealed as replies and verdicts in response to situations and circumstances. So that is the nature of the Quran, and this is also the nature of Islamic finance. We deal with the reality as it is in real life. This is يعني a presentation which is interesting to show the same thing. Uh, Now, if we make a quick comparison between conventional finance and Islamic finance, interest is an increase in debt, while return in Islamic finance is an increase in something which creates added value. Two, in an interest-based relationship, the creditor does not guarantee or bear anything from the loss, while in the Islamic finance, the guarantees and bears the creditor guarantees and bears risk of ownership. You have the daman, as we said, the liability of what you own, and you have to own in order to finance. So you bear the risk or the liability of your of the thing you own before you give it as on sale or on lease. In an interest-based system, the increase is assumptive and arbitrary. It comes from outside the reality, from outside the market. While in Islamic finance, it is real. It comes from the real market. In the interest-based system, financing is based on the ability to repay, regardless, of course, the ability to repay and the amount of profit you make, amount of interest. So you give more ability to repay and higher interest, you get financing from a conventional bank. While in Islamic finance, you must go through goods and services. So the main objective of Islamic finance is transferring the ownership of goods or services from one person to another, helping that transfer. That is not necessarily, we don't worry about what are you using the finance for, as long as you give me adequate guarantee adequate collateral, you are going to pay me the principal plus the interest of it. That doesn't mean we don't worry about repayment and about guarantees in Islamic finance. We do worry about it, but you give me whatever high rate of profit and high rate and high guarantee, the best guarantee that can ever exist in the world to finance liquor. I'll tell you, I won't finance it. In Islamic finance, I will not finance liquor or cigarette or casinos, for instance. I don't finance them simply, even at any amount of profit or any amount of return or guarantee of the principal. So we are not it's not that we don't ask for guarantee. Of course, every creditor has the right to be sure that the debt he owns is really going to be paid, is not going to become zero, is going to be paid. You have that right, and that right you can assure it by collaterals and guarantees and any way you desire at the time when you create the debt. But so we are not biased toward the poor, for instance, in Islamic financial intermediation. We are biased toward the commodities, the services that are being utilized, produced, and utilized and transferred from the supplier to the user. We are biased to this, but not to the rich. Conventional interest based finance is biased really to the rich, the one who is able to pay more interest and to give us guarantees. And we don't worry, we don't care even if you are getting the money to gamble in Las Vegas. You get money, and all gamblers in Las Vegas are being financed by conventional banks also. So we continue our discussion here. Uh, Islamic finance is in fact universal, not really for Muslims alone. And really, all universities should consider teaching Islamic finance. Some universities now in United States, one in California, we have one also in Washington, D.C. There is one also in, I think, Dallas, either Dallas or another city in Texas, that teach Islamic finance, has a course on Islamic finance, but it should be really taught is a finance for humanity, not for Muslims alone. So, in the globalized market, it is Islamic finance is a global system of finance, moral, ethical, and connected to the real market. It is finance definitely, even in several Muslim countries. Most managers in Islamic banks in the Gulf are European or American or Canadian, and most of them are not Muslims. At the middle management level and even at the high management level, you will find the name of the chairman of the board or the CEO is only a figurehead, really, but his deputy is the one who takes all the action in most of the times, and his deputy is not Muslim. Need not to be done. Islamic finance doesn't need to be done by Muslims or given to Muslims, provided to Muslims. It is only applying certain rules, and these rules, yes, they are Islamic because they came from the religion of Islam, they came from the Quran and the Sunnah, so they are Islamic in that sense. And anyone who don't like them because of their name is he himself or she herself is prejudiced. That is prejudice against the thing that is better for them simply because of the name. They should not bear that prejudice in their minds. They should not be prejudice against us or against the name, although it is for them like anything else, doesn't need anything. And we need to present Islamic finance as finance for the real economy, finance for all humanity, with all human dignity, developmental by its vision, and ethical and realistic by its approach. So this is what Islamic finance, and this is what we should present it all the time in that way. And I think, oh gosh, I have to, this is references anyway. So please excuse me to go for my prayer, Maghrib prayer. Now I should stop at 7, not at 7:20 now in my time. Allow me to please close the. We will get questions after my prayer, and Assalamu alaikum. I am back.
وعليكم السلام.
How do I come out of this? No, I don't know. Okay. Any question? Hello? Are you guys with us?
Yes, Maryam Adnan, you can
Yes. Go ahead, please.
جزاك الله خير. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Earlier today you were mentioning that in an exchange, if there's deferred payment, it creates more value, but results in there being a loser
If
and a
there
winner.
is what? What did you say? If there is what?
If there's deferred payment,
Different.
like a delayed payment.
Yeah, yes.
So you said that it creates more value, but results in there being a loser and a winner.
Well, I mean, it's natural. Let's take the example of buying a bicycle. Buying a bicycle without paying for it now, I pay after 3 months. Actually, I am buying the use of the bicycle for 3 months in addition to the bicycle also. So I am buying really two things together. Same thing for consumable things, buying an apple. I prefer the apple today over the apple tomorrow. So I want the apple today to eat it today. And tomorrow I may have different opinion about it. So when I take it today, it has to me more value than tomorrow. We accept time value of things, but we don't accept time value of debt because of realism. The problem itself is realism. Debt, I don't get benefit from a debt through time. So it doesn't create a benefit. And that's why transferring debt can only be at face value, and which means really it's not an economic transaction. You wouldn't do it. You only do it with a close friend of yours whom you want to really help by paying him cash for a debt that is due after a month. Otherwise, you don't do it. This is not an economical transaction, transferring debt at face value. And that is why we say, in principle, it really means that there should be no transfers of debts. Debt will remain with the creator of the debt, and then you be more careful that it's you who will be responsible for it until it is paid. So you cannot throw the buck on anybody else. Okay?
Yeah, so sorry, part of the question was, even if I understand that it does create more value, but even if the provider of the item is losing out in that transaction, does that still entitle them to charge a different price if the recipient pays now versus pays later?
But see here, sale creates value for both parties. Otherwise, they won't do it. You better save the calories of signing a contract or entering into a contract or arguing, discussing, negotiating a contract. Sale creates value. Now, suppose I bought an item for 10, and then I cannot sell it for more than 7 now. Regardless of when I bought it or what, maybe I bought it an hour ago. And yet, when I sell it at 7 at loss, I am gaining because at that moment, the 7 is better for me than that item. The item lost value because of the market conditions. So for at that moment, the 7 is better for to me than the item itself. Otherwise, I wouldn't sell it. I sold it at 7 because at that moment, although yesterday, for instance, I bought it for 10, and I have to swallow that 10 because for this moment, when I sell it, the 7 is better for me than the item. That means I am, by selling it and exchanging it for the item, I am gaining. And again, the seller is also, the buyer is also gaining by exactly the same argument. Now, when you add to it time, time affects the value of things but doesn't really affect the value of money. Notice, yani, and that's an interesting issue here. That the item, when I give you an item, or when I buy an apple today has more value to me than an apple tomorrow. It is suppose $1. So I buy it today for $1 if I have a dollar. But if I don't have a dollar, and I want it today, I am willing to pay for it tomorrow, $1.10, because its value to me today equal the value of $1.01 tomorrow and 10 cents tomorrow, for instance. So this is here, يعني the time affects the value of things because people have their own demand, their own supported demand with abilities to pay that vary between people. And this variation creates time value of goods, but not time value of money or of debt. Both don't have time value. So the time value of money as money is not acceptable because what is the difference? If the money is in my pocket, of course, we assume there is no inflation or deflation. The $100 in my pocket today and tomorrow is the same. But the item, taking the bicycle today, is better for me than I can take it for, say, $100 a year or 3 months later. But I want to use it now. I am buying practically the bicycle plus its use for 3 months, and then I will be willing to pay $110, although I know its price today is 100, but I'll pay it 110 very gladly, naturally, because really I am buying two things. I am buying the usufruct for 3 months, and I am buying the corpus also. Otherwise, I could wait and buy it after 3 months at $100. And the same thing applies to the other side, to the seller. Same argument applies to both. So the time value of things exist, but in reality, time value of money or of debt does not exist. Unless you take your term of reference, if I put it in the bank, I got $5 extra on it. But that is the same thing. If I put it as a debt in the bank, debt to the bank will give me extra. Well, this is what we are arguing, which this is only assumptive and not true, not real. Whereas the usufruct of the bicycle or the apple is real. Did I answer you?
Yes, I think I understand that. Jazakallah khair.
Okay. Any other question? Okay, if there are no other questions, thank you very much. We'll see you inshallah next week. But please make the homework. Be careful about the dots at the end of each line, which is semicolon, and then the last one colon, dot, not colon, dot. And then again, a dot, and the line comes, and don't put any other thing. And yani, we should follow instruction as they are. يعني I wouldn't accept any other يعني thing. Someone put me 5 dots instead of A, B, C, D, E. That's not acceptable, definitely. Okay. Thank you very much. يلا السلام عليكم. مع
جزاك
السلامة.
الله خير بروفيسور.
You
عليكم
are
السلام.
welcome. أهلا.
جزاك الله خير.
إياكم.